everybody, welcome back to another episode of TriFig with me, Chris. Now today we're going to be looking at something that's not an anime figure, and that's because we're going to be taking a line of figures that you don't usually see around anime, and a line of figures that really means a lot to me as a collector and where I came from. So we're going to start off today by looking at NECA's beautiful version of Pennywise from 2017 remake of Stephen King's classic It. So let's get started. The box is pretty, very pretty. You get the It Blu-ray cover as the main visual with Pennywise shushing you on the sides and supposing ideas on the back, while the top is just a lid and the bottom credits everyone responsible for NECA's demonic creation. The box also has a sweet open door on that front where you can look at the figure and you get a really nicely done photo of Pennywise on the side also. The insert is also fairly cool as you get the house on Neibolt Street as a background. Now with Pennywise you get two additional heads, a serious staring It one, featuring rich green eyes, grungy face paint, and vibrant red hair which carries over to the open mouth I'm gonna bite your arm off head. This head features a glossy finish on the teeth to give it that moist look, and his eyes are even crossed to show his insanity going into feeding mode. You also get two flat palm hands that are to scale and a nice addition to the balloon holding hand and the grabby hand you get. That way you can get different poses going for him throughout the film. And that brings me to my next addition, which is the balloon. Now the balloon is my favorite part of this figure because now you can really shoot that playful hunting spirit Pennywise presents in the movie. Even if getting him to hold the freaking balloon is the most annoying part about this figure, as you try to put it in the hand and the paint covering the wire tie comes off. Lastly, you get a well-painted and detailed replica of Georgie's boat down to the fold lines and pen marks, but unfortunately, she don't float. And I thought they all float down here. Every 27 years, It returns to prey on the children, taking on different forms to haunt, torment, and eventually take them with the promise of you'll float too. And it looks like this time, Pennywise took on the form of an awesome NECA film reel figure, and boy, is it epic. A lot of work went into recreating Andre Muschietti's iteration of It, played by the amazing Bill Skarsgård. The amount of detail captured in the facial sculpts is outstanding. Then there's the clothing, which feature all the dirt and grime around his fluffy pieces shirt. Although most of the paintwork feels reserved for his shoes and his face, because his clothing and his hands have this distinct lack of any finish. Almost like he was dunked in a paint can labeled just gray and declared finished. There is, however, an extremely cool detail on the back of its clothing, and that's this overlapping lizard-like scale texture running around his middle. It gives this extra level of otherworldly presence. It's creepy but extremely cool how they did that. Posing Pennywise is mostly easy. He has a lot of points of articulation like here, some here, and here. But even with these bends, he doesn't feel as fluid or capable compared to a Figma, which we'll cover real soon, but it has to do with animating them. Replacing parts can also be a little rough, as the ball end joints have to snap in to the hands and heads, but continually doing this leaves the entries smoothed out and widened. It's not a terrible problem, but then they start to wobble, pull off easier, which can be a negative if you're doing, once again, stop motion with them. And it becomes more difficult to keep them stable and show off that amazing energy. Which brings up the next issue, and that is, Pennywise needs a stand, and sadly, NECA still won't give you one with their figures. I had to go back where I got this guy and pick up a NECA stand for $10 extra. $10 extra that I really think should have just been included in the price. So that means without that stand, complicated poses, they get a little trickier to achieve. Now, both NECA and Figma figures, they collect insane amount of details, capturing their characters they come from the littlest to the largest details. Price-wise, however, there is quite a jump, as some of the high-end DX and the collectible series of Figmas They'll run you anywhere from $75 to $90, much like that Figma Hunter reviewed earlier. And Ryuko from Kill la Kill, which needed to get a re-release just to get accustomed to that price she ended up hitting on eBay. NECA, on the other hand, their figures can go as low as $30, much like Pennywise. Not to mention, NECA goes into the horrorverse, so you can find some extremely amazing figures to photograph and terrorize your anime waifus in your display. However, at least with Figmas, you get a professional stand, which may need a weight, we'll go into that, which can really hold your figures and help with that stop motion as well. Whereas with NECA, you will need to pony up those extra $10 to buy their dynamic stand. It's a good stand, but sadly you can't fold it out the arm to place Pennywise outside of his base, and the stand's lower arm is locked in place, further restricting any kind of posing and stop motion actions you need without having to go into the professional world of building a rig. Bottom line, the price is real positive for NECA, but I think a bump up in the price to include a stand would be a great addition to this figure line, NECA. You can kind of see where it gets a little bit tricky to do his stop motion practices, and it's a lot easier to do them on a Figma, and I think that's just because of the more complicated clothing they have on Pennywise. It happens the same thing with a lot of their other lines, especially their Bioshock figures, whereas with Figmas, they tend to always have a little bit easier to use joints that still lock in place. So if you're experimenting with stop motion animation, NECA's a bit of a challenge, but if you got the time, you can definitely do it, whereas Figmas might be a little bit easier to kind of mess around with, get the poses, although you'll need to add a weight, like I mentioned, to their stand, so that it's not tip-topping around when you get them floating or doing jumping poses. That way the base will stay nice and flat. So why should y'all watching this consider NECA? I started collecting through NECA back in high school and well through college, even before I got into anime figures. And that's because they were the only company presenting to me my favorite movies in toy form. At a point when we thought Jurassic Park would never come back, when Bioshock would never get a 4th series, which they probably won't, NECA pushed forward, giving us Bioshock, Portal, Kill Bill, Nightmare on Elm Street, and even freaking Pacific Rim figures. NECA was also super cheap to get into and start collecting right away, leaving you room to focus on the fun, the photography, posing, even your displays. Once I got into anime figures, unfortunately I did stop collecting NECAs. But now I regretted it almost instantly, because a part of me is still a huge movie fan that's not only reserved to anime. And this is where NECA comes to the rescue, giving us that side of action, horror, and classic movie characters that we so much desire to own as figures. Good Smell, Max Factory, Mega House, and Alter are excellent, amazing companies. And yes, if they ever try to do any rendition of horror characters in their own style, they can very well have my organs, my house, anything they want, and I will buy them. But at the moment, we only get one company that knows how to deliver on outside of anime characters. One company that gives you the horror adrenaline, grotesque detail, and pure film love that is Pennywise, and that's NECA. So, would I recommend him? Well, there is no NO when it comes to Pennywise. There is only